It's getting on for 5:45 in the evening, so I come down to the beach to talk to you, where there is sufficient light and a nice sea breeze, as you may be able to see. Actually, I'm possibly here, but I come down here also because it's just over there in the forest where I live, in the Kuti. It's a little dark and the camera doesn't really pick much up. So also of an evening, there are lots of mosquitoes now at this time of the year. Always, but especially now because it is so hot. This is the hot season. I think during the day it's probably late 30s, 40s. Very humid as well. You can see the air is quite hazy behind me, even at this time of the evening. And thought that occurred to me when I sat down, because I had no plans of what to talk about just now. But as I was about to sit down, I sat here for a few moments and thought, this is the impression one gets about meditation, as it is all about surroundings and environment, and you often see nice photographs and pictures. You see videos of people meditating on beaches, sunsets. Even here, apart from the light, I think it's a nice backdrop rather than just me on the screen. So I choose it for that reason. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying things we see, hear, smell, taste and touch. But as I was discussing in the previous video, it is very much a case, if we're wanting to develop wholesome mind states and reduce unwholesome mind states, with a goal towards calming the mind and developing serenity, peace, equanimity, we need as little stimulation as possible. So the beautiful pictures you see of meditation with a beach, maybe with the sun setting or the sun rising, golden sands and everything all looking lovely like this, is really not what we're aiming for in meditation, because we close our eyes to shut out what we're seeing. We cannot close our ears as such, but we can concentrate, or we can draw our attention to silence between sounds. And with regards to smelling, tasting, touching, the other sense doors, they still have an impact on our meditation. So as beautiful as this looks, sitting on this rock, and as meditative as it looks, maybe not, I don't know. I suppose it's a matter of taste. There are also videos, I think, or photographs people have taken where I've been sitting on the beach, beautiful beaches in India, and people have come up to me and said, "Oh, look, here's a photograph," and they've shown me it, and it looks very cool, sitting there, my back to them, but I'm sitting on the beach, the sunset in front of me, meditating, they say. And they say, you look like you're meditating, that's very nice. I say, no, I wasn't meditating. Oh, but yes, you are. No. I was sitting on the beach. I was sitting on the beach, enjoying watching the sunset, enjoying listening to the sound of the waves and the sea, and the feeling of the sand, the warm sand beneath me. I was enjoying all those sense impressions, because there's nothing wrong with that. I wasn't overindulging in them. They're pleasant, calming sense impressions, which can only really lead to wholesome mind states, or the development of wholesome mind states and calmness, yes, as opposed to, say, watching a horror movie. But this is not meditation. Meditation is not outside, it is inside. It is not external, it is internal. So, if I choose to meditate now, at this time of the evening, which I will be after I've spoken just now, I'll go back to my veranda or my kuti. There will be the forest sounds, there will be mosquitoes. But I can bear mosquitoes because in meditation I really do like to get absorbed internally, away from sense impressions. So the surrounding environment isn't so much important. Even once one develops the ability through patience and endurance to meditate for some time, if mosquitoes come along and have their dinner, their lunch or their breakfast, they can go unnoticed. They'll take what they need and they'll leave, grateful. And they usually take the itchy, irritant, stingy bit with them, if you allow them to finish. It's only when you brush them off, or heavens forbid, hurt them, then you force them to leave the anticoagulant, which thins the blood, for them to suck it up their little proboscis, or whatever it's called, their tube they suck your blood up with. To stop it coagulating in there, they inject a little anticoagulant into the toe, and then they suck the blood up so it won't clot in the hole or in their tube. And when they finish, that comes with the final slurp, therefore taking away the itch. So actually, if you do watch a mosquito land, have its lunch, and let it fly away, you won't need to scratch. There won't even be a little pimple, nothing. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. I've spoken about that many times before. Mosquitoes are known as Ajahn mosquito in this tradition in the forest, because they teach us this training of patience and endurance. But that aside, I choose to meditate in an environment whereby I'm not going to be disturbed, but it doesn't have to be aesthetically pleasing. In fact, we don't want aesthetically pleasing, we don't want aesthetically displeasing. We want the middle path. This is the teachings of the Buddha, the middle ground, not austerity and not opulence and overindulgence, but somewhere in the middle. Now, depending on where you are in your practice, your position may be quite a little bit in this day and age of such access to luxury. Just checking this is on. Access to luxury, very austere indeed. We've just had a little change again, a few changes here. And I was reminded of this. Our what do you call it? Not part-time, temporary ordination monk, a Thai, I was going to say boy, but I'm sure he's probably could be in his 30s. He's a maths teacher in Bangkok. He's been here as a fully ordained monk for 15 days. This is tradition in Thailand. Male members of the family often ordained for a period of time. They're allowed time off work for this if they work for governments and most large organisations. So I expect if he's a maths teacher, he was given time on pay to do such a thing. But regardless of which, the other whys and wherefores behind it, he was here for 15 days, and I thought this must be very nice for him to come and stay here for 15 days. He has one of the guest kutis. And as do I, actually. I don't really have much of a monk's kuti, which is considerably smaller. My kuti is a little bit on the luxurious side. But because I think it's one that's designed for guests. When I first arrived, I probably got shown there, and that's where I stayed. But he was here, and he didn't speak much English, but enough for me to have a short conversation towards the end of his stay. I asked him how long he was staying for, and he said, I go on whenever it was, Sunday or something, And I said, oh, just soon? And he said, yes. And he's smiling and he looked happy. I said, oh, shame. Oh, no, he said, it's, what was his words? He's missing home. He said, he's very tired. I thought, tired? What, you don't have to do anything. Home is the tiring place for me. I know when I have to go outside of the monastery, I come back, I'm quite exhausted. I've just been outside of the monastery yesterday afternoon for a little trip, and this time I quickly made a video or two before I went and now today, so I didn't have to make one yesterday. I cheated, but I think I've synced it all right, so you won't even notice. These don't take a lot of planning. I'm being honest with you. These videos take me to make as long as it takes you to see them. That's it. I record them and it shows, and I put them on YouTube, and it probably shows, yes. But I don't have the inclination to edit, change, or do much other than reply to your kind comments and emails and answer any questions or inquiries that you send in. And that takes up no more than an hour and a half or a couple of hours of my day at the very most. And it's a well worthwhile exercise from that point of view for me, because talking about the teachings of the Buddha is always a good way to remind oneself. And hopefully, if there's anything useful for people watching, they can also pick something up that they can try out, experiment with, and experience for themselves. I'd also like to hope that if you like this and it's useful, you'll share with your friends, whether they be inclined towards the Dharma or not. Just maybe they could be looking at something like this and think, well, that's interesting. I thought meditation was something a little bit more intense than what I'm seeing here. So the more you share, the more you are giving the gift of Dharma, even in an indirect way. And giving of any kind is the greatest thing we can do. It makes us feel good, gives us a sense of well-being, as well, of course, the person that is receiving whatever we are giving. And if they don't like it, they don't have to watch. They can just turn it off, can't they? But he was leaving to go back to worldly life, to teaching. I found out later, I asked him, what do you work? What do you do? And he said, a maths teacher. And I thought, oh, imagine. No disrespect to you maths teachers there, or anyone who's teaching. It's an admirable profession. But I couldn't do it. It would be, I had a spell of teaching back at the monastery in India. They have 70 or 80 odd novice monks there, whom are under the age of 18. You cannot ordain as a full Bhikkhu until you're 20 years old, in fact. But they're there from 8 years old up until any age, really. But during this time, from 8 years upwards, they have to be educated. So it's a full school. And I taught English and various other subjects. I think I was the worst teacher ever that they have come across, because it just really is, I just waffle like this. And as far as the subject is concerned, I found it really quite difficult to be in their minds to help them understand whatever it is I was trying to teach them. And I should be able to teach English, but I had to use the state, the government curriculum. So I couldn't just sit there and talk, because I think that's really a good way to learn a language, have interactive conversation. I had to go through exercise books with the exercises which weren't actually even grammatically correct. So it was quite difficult for me. But I admire anyone in the teaching profession, because they're doing such an important, essential, necessary line of work which has to be done in modern day society, in any society, because people have to learn, even if it's just learning how to cut down trees or do agricultural work. This is not just, it's how we live. So whatever your means of living, someone has to teach you it. But the Dharma, we just teach it by example. And the monastic example of teaching the Dharma is living the way in which the Buddha taught us to live. Now, I've chosen the little bit more difficult path, which requires quite a bit of determination of the forest tradition. It helps me, supports me with regards to those distractions I was talking about that come through us having to guard or being unable to guard our sense doors, but those mainly that arise through our thinking minds. And we call those the kilesas, the, if you like, the opposite of what grounds us in terms of our practice of sila, samadhi, panya, are all of these nagging ideas that come along to give you shortcuts or better options, different ways of doing things, which are just tricks. Or if you really, the mind, the thoughts are coming up and telling you lies to trick you off the path the Buddha taught us. This is as a practitioner, as a monastic I'm talking about, but also as a lay practitioner. You sit to meditate, oh, I'm thirsty, oh, I need to move this leg, I need to do this. This is the kilesas, we call them. So the best way to really take up battle with the kilesas, because it is a war for a Kamatana monk, a Bhutanga monk, these are the austere practitioners in this monastic world, is we really take our life back down to the basics, and we're exposed to the physical and mental rawness of suffering and life, really experiencing dukkha, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, so impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and things being out of our control, really directly, with no other distractions, so that we can focus our attention, developing our mindfulness, our sati, on those issues, and in our meditation, develop samadhi to not escape, but to bring our awareness inside, away from those external distractions. Now, of course, this poor fellow who lives in the worldly life, as a maths teacher, he didn't see it like this. He was the reason they can ordain temporarily here in Thailand is because they're brought up with Buddhism. They understand Buddhism. They know the chanting. They know the scriptures. They understand anicca, dukkha, anatta, sila, samadhi, panya from a very early age, as people in a Christian country would know Christianity, or a Muslim country, the Islamic faiths, etc. So it's familiar to them. So they can really go in as bhikkhus without having to have any training other than what is the core what, which is this living in a monastery, which they've already heard about and experienced from their peer groups, their friends and their family who have done the same. But of course, it's only when you do it for real and you're exposed to it in the raw that you really do experience it. And that's why they do it. It's a very good experience for them to help them really see the difference between monastic life and lay life. Because after all, they are supporting the monks, and the monks are supporting lay people with their spiritual needs, the lay people supporting the monks with their requisites, physical needs, food, shelter, clothing and medicine. They can really draw that line, delineation between the two. There's no grey area. Now in the West, we tend to think, oh, well, you know, it's a bit of this, bit of that. We can do this. We can be a bit of a tough practitioner and almost lead a monastic life. I did for, I don't know, 8 years, something. I was on 8 precepts, living, not probably quite 8 years, maybe 5, on 8 precepts in the world, thinking this is, you know, I've got it as hard as a monk. But really, it was only during my stays, quite long stays in monasteries, that I really experienced it and had to get used to it. So me being used to it, saw it as interesting that this poor chap was really tired and needed to get back to what I consider hard work. So yes, there's been some changes. So he's now gone. And the monk who was staying here just for a short while, which I didn't know, I never know because of the language barrier, who was an Ajahn, so 10 years plus, he recited the last Patimokkha, so he's very got a deep understanding of the sutras and the chanting to be able to do that. I think it's quite a small percentage of monastics in the world, and even here in Thailand, that can actually do that, recite the Patimokkha proficiently from start to finish to the standards that are required here. That is with no mistakes and within a good length of time. So he was a very, very nice monk and very nice chap to live with. Because although we didn't speak, when I live with these senior monks, as I do my teachers here, the senior monk and then the abbot, whom are very close in Vassas, or pans as they call them here, I'm living with them on a day-to-day basis. So I'm picking things up every day, learning from them, by their behaviour, their mannerisms, the way they do things. And they will correct me when I do things to the contrary. That aren't quite right. So this is also part of the training. So he left, to my surprise, this morning, and we were suddenly back down to the two Ajahns. The monk who's just slightly senior to me. I shouldn't say this, but Sampa Palapa monk, or sweeping monk, he likes to sweep a lot, and when he's not sweeping, he's talking to himself or the dogs or someone. He's a lovely, lovely man, but he likes to have things going on. He does a lot of good work. He collects a lot of food and distributes a lot of food as well. So he's what I call a busy monk. There are busy monks, there are meditative, contemplative monks, all kinds of monks. This is what makes up a community. All kinds of different people, characters, personalities. And I can use the word personality. I know we're getting rid of this belief in self, but we still have to live with each other. We have to call each other names. We do live by conventions of this materialistic world. So therefore our personalities are our vehicles, like our motor cars. You can't get from A to B a long distance without our motor car, but you can't say, I am part of the motor car. But certainly the motor car you are part of, or driving, is going to tell a lot of people a lot of things about you. Maybe wrongly or rightly. So, but it does. It's perception. And this is akin to personality. So we draw these perceptions. And we learn also from those. Ajahn Sampapalapa, for instance, Ajahn Mosquito, Ajahn whatever. It's teaching you, not always in a negative way, it's always a positive way, whatever the teaching. If it's teaching you understanding of other people, personalities, patience and endurance, and assisting with your practice, and helping you towards calming your mind. So if someone does something to annoy you, you learn that it's only you, yourself, annoying you by going out, getting what it is, and taking it in and saying, this is annoying me. If you just allow it to be as it is, anicca, unsure, impermanent, and don't go out to get it and bring it back in, you'll see it will soon pass away. So when someone starts sweeping just at the wrong moment in whatever you're doing in the time, you don't need to react. You're developing equanimity through the understanding that that sweeping will stop in any moment. As sure as it started, it will stop. Like a pain in the knee or a mosquito having its lunch. These are all subject to anicca. So this dear fellow's gone back to Bangkok to teach maths. This other monastic, this monk, he's gone off to live with his elephants, because that's apparently where he's been spending the last 3 months in India. He came here on his way, and now he's gone back to live with elephants. So a very interesting fellow. Had a big tattoo of Ganesh or Kenesho, I think they call it here. So he's pretty much elephant man. I mean, it didn't look, not like our Western that thing, no. With a man with the elephants. It takes all sorts, doesn't it? But we're all bound by the same monastic code. We're all living by the same monastic rules. In monasteries, they're called what? The way we do things. And I suppose for people on the outside, that would be a little bit difficult. For me, on the outside, it's a little bit difficult. So I had to go out yesterday for a quick trip. I had an appointment at the hospital in a nearby biggest city, put it that way. Not the nearest biggest city, but the nearest much bigger city, where there was a sufficiently big hospital to have a big eye department where I could go and get my eyes checked for just a regular checkup and organise some treatment and things. And the abbot came with us. His brother was driving me, which is very nice, very kind. They take such good care of you. He came with me also. So we had yet another stop-off visit at the Office of Buddhism on the return journey to continue with our. I'm not even sure now. I've lost track of where we've got to with that. But it's all very well taken care of for me. But sometimes I have to answer a lot of questions, which isn't a problem. I know the answers and I understand the questions. But sometimes conveying this, when you have this language barrier, even with people that speak English, when it's quite a complex mixture of languages in terms of when we're talking about monastic procedures and experience, there's a lot of Pali, and here the Pali is pronounced differently. So it can be tiring. And then there's all of the external sensory stimulation of everything that we don't have in the forest, which is why we live in the forest. But it's very good from time to time. And I think nearly 4 months now that I've been here in this forest, I've been out probably half a dozen times or less. Apart from alms round each morning, half a dozen times or less I've been outside of the gates here. And, well, it doesn't actually have gates, but what we call the gate. So I am secluded. This is where we deal with the kilesas. And you cannot seclude yourself from the kilesas by what we call kaya viveka. Kaya viveka is seclusion of the body and the thinking mind. The guarding to some extent of the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and the thinking mind, but the physical seclusion, for instance, of a kuti in the forest, away from what the outside world has to offer. This is kaya viveka. But our mind, our thinking mind, or our citta, our heart mind, requires the seclusion of citta viveka, which is the development of samadhi through our meditation. So this is not my chosen or preferred spot for meditation. And you must know, I want to share with you, that the best place for you to meditate is where you live comfortably, in your bedroom or your living room. Just clear a little space on the floor and sit there. Turn the lights off if needs be, light a candle, light some incense. Certainly turn off the music, the radio, the television, and wait until you're alone. But that is by far the best spot. Not a beautiful Instagram version of a sunset. No disrespect to whatever that is, because I've never seen Instagram. I've heard of it though, mentioned before. So I know it's pretty pictures. But this view is not necessary when your eyes are closed. The beautiful sound of the waves, which I think with these mics you don't hear so much, but it's not necessary when you're meditating. It may help calm the mind, and there's nothing wrong with that, but call it that, know it as that. If you're watching the sunset on the beach, you're watching the sunset on the beach. If you're going for a walk in the countryside, you're going for a walk in the countryside. You're not, oh, I'm going to the beach to watch the sunset to meditate. Oh, I'm going for a walk in the countryside to meditate. It is meditative, yes, it calms the mind. It brings your mind into a better place. Draws the attention to the beauty or the serenity or nature. But it is not going inside. We're drawing in. Like the arms of a tortoise or a turtle and the head, it brings them inside to its shell. For Kaya Viveka, for protection from sensual stimulation, and also its body is protected. But it then has to allow its mind, its thinking mind, not so much the tortoise, but you have to allow your thinking mind time to settle. And given time to settle, it will become calm. It will allow your body to relax. And sooner or later, it may take some time, with this practice, you'll find that the space between thoughts will get wider and wider. You'll have moments where you only had your attention on your meditation object and you were not thinking. Eventually you'll have moments where even your meditation object became so subtle it wasn't part of your thinking process. This is what we call samadhi. This is how we then develop clarity of vision, seeing clearly. When we come out of samadhi, all that we have to face in worldly life, in our daily lives, whether we are monks or lay people, when we see clearly all we experience through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, for exactly that, what it is, and the nature of it in terms of its impermanence, anicca, the suffering it causes through its unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and how out of our own control, how these personalities are not ours. That realization is wisdom. So we have developed through samadhi, panya, wisdom, that understanding, that realization, which gives us this, you've heard, vipassana, seeing clearly, ability to operate mindfully in day-to-day life, maybe still with your mind on a meditation object. This is the practice. This is the practice of sila, samadhi, panya, to develop the wisdom, the knowledge, the right view of not only the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, which the Noble Eightfold Path is represented by sila, samadhi, panya, but develop the wisdom and understanding of anicca, dukkha and anatta. This is what leads us eventually and happily along this path towards nirvana. So, as unsure as things are, we were down to just the original 4 monks and our novice. The novice has been here longer than anyone else. He always wants to be a novice, I think. That's some people's choice. And he rings the bell in the morning. He's a very important mainstay to this community. He does so much of the practical things that we are not allowed to do through our rules, that he can, but many he can't either, but he does a lot of organising of those things to be done, including the greeting of then, this afternoon, yet another one has turned up. So we now have another monk who's arrived. He looks older than, it's very hard to tell, but certainly I don't know in terms of, I won't know his seniority in monastic terms until we are in the hinder part, arms round line tomorrow, walking through the town or through the village with our bowls to collect food, because we have to go in order of seniority. As when we're eating in the And in the Sala, we're in order of seniority. So wherever my space I find in the Sala in the morning is, I'll know where this new visitor monk is. I mean, it doesn't matter that much, but obviously I have the knowledge then to bow and pay respects, which I know I will, because I'm always the most junior, to the new monk that has arrived tomorrow. So it's change again. So even here in community life, in the forest, we experience anicca. And this is good for my practice also. I'm not getting used to just the same people all of the time. There's also this underlying current of people coming, arriving, staying a while and going away. Coming, arriving, staying a while, coming away. And if you practice on Vipassana courses in the tradition of Goenka, you'll know that very well about thoughts arising, staying a while, passing away. Bodily feelings arising, staying a while, passing away. So well demonstrated by visitors here staying in the monastery. We only have monks coming to stay, and very occasionally a lay person who's not very well, something like that maybe. But they have a different, I don't know quite how it works. But that I think means I don't know, it's getting dark, I don't know the time. I think I've spoken for long enough, and I hope there's something useful in what I've said. I had no structure. Usually at least I have a kind of title in mind in my head. I'll talk about this or I'll talk about that. I had planned to talk to you about walking meditation today, continuing from our practical talk on meditation the other day. But the walking meditation path I was going to use, which had just been vacated by the temporary monk in his kuti, which is the only walking meditation path I found with sufficient light to point the camera for me to demonstrate, has now been reoccupied by this new visitor. So you're going to have to wait another couple of days for that one. But as soon as it's free again, I had swept it and got it ready. You'll see when I make the video why. I could just do it on the beach here, but then it might make people watching for the first time think that you need to be in a situation like this to practice walking meditation, when it is quite the opposite. You need to be in a place whereby, at first at least, when you're starting meditation, walking meditation, you are undistracted only by your thoughts, because these are troublesome enough. You don't need other things going on and people passing by. Not that there's anyone passing by here, it's a private beach, but still the dogs come, sometimes some other monks come, and you never know what's going to come out of this sea. But I should go, and I hope there's something useful in there. If there is, please use it. If not, then don't. And thank you for watching.